In an isolated house between the woods, deaf-mute woman Maddie Young is cooking dinner for herself. She is following a recipe on her laptop when she gets a message from her neighbor Sarah. Sarah asks if she could stop by and Maddie answers in an affirmative. She adds that she is cooking. Her laptop's battery is on the verge of dying, and so she keeps it on charge while she continues to chat with Sarah on her phone. After sending a message to Sarah, she opens the door to let her cat enter and have its meal. While the cat is enjoying its meal, Sarah and Maddie continue to chat. Sarah smiles when she sees Maddie standing at her door. The ladies hug when they meet. Sarah tells her that she loved Maddie's book. She uses sign language to talk to Maddie, but Maddie asks her to not use it as she understands what Sarah is saying. Maddie reads the person's lips and understands the words. She asks whether Sarah loves the book she has written. Sarah says she has fallen in love with the characters in the book. She also shares how she tried to guess the ending but was way off that what Maddie has written. Maddie is a horror author. Sarah wishes to know how Maddie writes this amazingly and how she comes up with the plots. Maddie says she has a voice in her head that sounds like her mother. Her mother would call her writer's brain, as she would see multiple endings to her novel in her head that plays out like a frustrating movie. To lighten the mood, Sarah continues to appreciate Maddie's book while using sign language. She wrongly uses one of the signs for a word and the ladies laugh. The alarm from inside the house suddenly starts to blare. Since Maddie is deaf-mute and has her back facing her house, she does not know about it. She only realizes it when Sarah points to her house and tells her about the alarm. Maddie quickly rushes inside. There is smoke everywhere. While Maddie is trying to switch the fire alarm and the light inside it off, Sarah removes the burnt meat from the oven and places it under running water. After everything calms down, Sarah tells Maddie how loud her fire alarm. Maddie shares she has to feel the vibrations to know when the fire alarm goes off. At night, the ladies are outside Maddie's house. They are sitting on the steps. Sarah asks about Maddie's cat as she could not see it anywhere, but Maddie tells her that her cat is independent and would be somewhere in the woods. Sarah apologizes for the dinner. She thinks it's her fault as she distracted Maddie with her arrival, which led to the food getting burnt. Sarah also suggests that the duo head to her place where they could order food from outside and watch a movie all night, adding that her boyfriend John would join them in an hour or two. Maddie declines the offer as she has to work. Before leaving, Sarah promises to visit her tomorrow morning. Maddie watches her friend walk away. She gets a message from a man named Craig. Maddie immediately deletes the message and walks inside. She places her phone and looks around. Her book Midnight Mass has a backstory of Maddie. When she was 13 years old, she lost her hearing and speaking abilities to a disease called bacterial meningitis. This disease led to permanent hearing loss along with temporary vocal cord paresis. Maddie had hoped to get her voice back, but she lost it permanently after a failed and unsuccessful surgery. She felt isolated, and so she turned to write books and novels. Later that night, Maddie eats her dinner while thinking of different plots for her book. She reads different endings to try and get an idea or a breakthrough. The voice in her mind plays different scenarios and endings for her book. One side of her brain would voice out points that she could use, while the other side of her brain would demotivate her and distract her from thinking well. Maddie decides to FaceTime Craig. She calls him twice and would always cut the call after 2 rings. She rubs her face as she is frustrated but gets startled when she sees Craig's call. Hurriedly, she shuts her laptop off, but the ring continues to play on her phone. After a few rings, it stops. Maddie decides to clean her kitchen and throw away the food she had cooked before Sarah came to meet her. While she is scraping out the food and putting it in the basin for washing, Sarah pounds on her door. She is scared and is covered in blood. Maddie does not see her as she has her back facing the door. Sarah pleads to Maddie to look at her while simultaneously trying to break in, but to no avail. While Maddie is busy washing one of her vessels, an arrow hits Sarah on her back. She turns around in pain and comes face to face with a masked man. The man grabs her by her neck and stabs her with a knife. While stabbing Sarah, he looks at Maddie. He continues to stab her till Sarah is no more. The door rattles, but Maddie is unknown with the happenings. After throwing Sarah's body on the floor, the masked man looks at Maddie. He knocks at the door and realizes Maddie is deaf. He decides to make her his next victim. He quickly drags Sarah's body away. Maddie turns to the door and finds no one. In the background, her phone keeps ringing. It is Craig again. Maddie places her phone upside down and sits on the sofa with the laptop on her lap. She opens the document and is frustrated when she does not get any idea. A door slides open. The masked man first stands behind her and looks at her. While Maddie continues to blame herself and how she is going to die before she publishes her second novel, the masked man walks behind her and holds the knife in his hand. He places his knife back inside and patiently observes his next victim. Maddie gets a FaceTime call from Max, and the masked man hurriedly moves away so that Maddie does not see him. Max and Maddie talk. Max worries about Maddie as she lives all alone. She hopes to convince Maddie to come back after she leaves New York, but Maddie disagrees. While they are talking, the masked man takes Maddie's phone away. The movement is detected by Max and she asks Maddie about it. Maddie says it's just her cat and she ends the call with Max. She then shuts her laptop off and tries to find her cat in the house. She checks under the bed, in the bathroom, upstairs, and in the main room, but does not find her cat. She even opens the door and hopes for her cat to return, but nothing happens. Maddie thinks it's peculiar but pays no heed and places the cat's food and wears a jacket. The door is still open. Maddie gets back to work. She receives a notification from her phone. She opens the message and finds her pictures in different parts of her house. The masked killer takes another picture of Maddie with her reaction to the messages. Maddie realizes the last picture is taken from the angle where she kept her door open. She cautiously walks towards the door and comes face to face with the masked hunter. The masked man mocks her by showing Maddie's phone in his hand. Maddie quickly runs towards the door to lock it. The hunter runs towards it too, but before he could enter, Maddie locks it. She continues to lock all the other doors. The masked man walks around the house. Just as he was about to enter from the back door, Maddie locks the door. She then hurriedly heads to her laptop and calls 911. Before she could connect the call, the lights went off. Maddie tries to connect her laptop to Sarah's Wi-Fi, but since she does not have her password, she cannot connect it. From a corner, the masked man mocks her by showing his knife to Maddie. Maddie is now petrified. She sees him puncture the tires of her car to prevent escape. After doing so, he walks into the woods. Maddie now decides on her next move. She grabs a lipstick from her bag and uses it to write, "Won't tell, didn't see face, boyfriend coming home" on the glass panel door. After doing so, she sits on the stairs that are right in front of the glass panel door and waits for the masked man with a torch in her hand. After reading it, the masked man removes his mask and reveals his face. He learns that Maddie can read his lips and taunts her with the threat of breaking in anytime he wants and walks away. Maddie grabs a knife from the kitchen along with a hammer. She looks around while walking towards the bedroom door. She enters it and locks the door. She also places a cabinet in front of the door and shuts the curtains and sits opposite the door. Maddie thinks the hunter will enter through the door, but she is proved wrong when she sees a shadow of a person outside her window. The hunter uses Sarah's body to knock on the window. Maddie quickly leaves the room and is in tears about her loss. After calming down, she uses her car keys to trigger the alarm and distract the hunter, but the key does not work. She quietly opens the door and uses her keys. The alarm blares, which grabs the killer's attention. While he runs towards the car, Maddie opens the door and tries to grab Sarah's phone from her pocket. Since her corpse is at a distance, it proves to be tricky for Maddie. She spots the hunter. He runs towards her, but Maddie almost closes the window. The hunter has a strong hold on the window that makes it hard for Maddie to close it completely. She spots a hammer in a corner and uses it to smash it on his hand. While the hunter is shouting in pain, Maddie closes the window and locks it. She sees blood dripping off the hunter's hand, who is now furious. The hunter tears a piece of Sarah's shirt and ties it around his wounded hand. He then places Sarah's now broken phone on her body and takes her earring. Maddie exits the room and hides next to a glass door. The hunter does not spot her in the house and he starts to get restless. Maddie quietly opens the door and tries to escape, but the hunter uses his crossbow on her. Maddie runs and enters the house again before the crossbow hits her. Looking at the fear in Maddie's eyes, the hunter smirks. Maddie again tries to escape through the second-story window, but the hunter spots her and shoots her in the leg with his crossbow bolt. When he climbs up to eliminate Maddie knocks him off the roof and gets a hold of his crossbow. She enters the window and closes it just seconds before the hunter arrives. Maddie walks downstairs and tapes her wounds. She then tries to reload the crossbow but faces difficulties with it. John, Sarah's boyfriend, knocks at Maddie's door. Maddie does not know about his arrival, but the hunter is alerted. He meets John and poses like a police officer. The hunter pretends to use John's phone to call for backup and then places the phone in his pocket. John asks for his phone and the hunter awkwardly laughs and returns it. While doing so, Sarah's earring fell. John grows suspicious of him and starts to ask questions. He then distracts the hunter and picks up the rock. When he is about to hit him, Maddie distracts John by banging on the window. This gave the hunter a chance to stab John in the neck. While he is fighting for his life, he puts the hunter in a chokehold to buy time for Maddie to run. She starts to run but then realizes she could be eliminated and knows the only way to end it is to eliminate the hunter before he dies. The voice in her head runs through different situations and angles she can use. While the hunter is talking to John's corpse, he spots Maddie's cat. He almost uses it to threaten Maddie, but she shoots him in the shoulder with the crossbow instead. After doing so, she retreats, but the killer smashes her wrist in the sliding door and crushes her hand beneath his boot and allows her to lock the door. Inside, Maddie turns around in pain. The hunter threatens to enter the house. Maddie uses her blood and writes, "Do it, coward." The hunter is aggravated. He runs and picks up the tire iron and starts to bash the door. Maddie, on the other hand, uses her laptop to type a description of the man and sends it to her family. After she does so, she runs and enters the bathroom, followed by locking the door. While she has her back facing the bathtub with blood oozing out of her wounds, she holds the knife and points it toward the door. The hunter enters the bathroom through the bathroom skylight. Maddie is unknown to it till he breathes against her neck. When the hunter is about to attack her, Maddie avoids it and stabs him in the knee. She runs away with the hunter behind her. When he is about to put her to eternal sleep, Maddie sprays his face with insecticides and uses the smoke alarm to disorient him, but he strangles her. Maddie finds a corkscrew next to him and eliminates him. She then retrieves her phone and calls 911. She sits on her porch steps when the police arrive. Maddie reunites with her cat and smiles while the police is approaching her.